Okay, so you don't feel that we need to publicize that?
I don't, I mean, it's, granted, I know the vaccine and, and everything is kind of coming out in the public, but I mean, we all still have to work with the HEPA law, and that's still, in my eyes, that's breaking HEPA. I mean, granted, I know the state's doing, the federal government's doing, but it's still, down. I just don't think it's that, Sydney, as far as I know, Sydney didn't do it, Rome didn't do it, China didn't do it, Oakland didn't do it. Why did we do it? I mean, if all the towns are doing it, publicizing out, so all the taxpayers, all their, towns residents know how many people are vaccinated, vaccinated at this school and that school, okay, it's fine. But when Belgrade is the only town doing that, in my eyes, as a taxpayer, I don't think that's.
Well, and I think sometimes information goes out on social media without necessarily being cleared. So it sounds to me like what you're saying is that you would like before something goes on social media for the board to know what's going out and say yay or nay.
Something that's, I mean, because, it's controversial throughout the whole country. I mean, and, I just think something like that, maybe should, maybe been run by somebody or, or maybe set a policy that type of stuff we don't publicize, unless it's, being asked to be publicized by RSU 18, okay, open, you need to publicize,
But then they got their own web pages.
correct.
So,
Right. So maybe social media is not the platform for that sort of stuff anyway. All right. Anything else on that, Bruce?
No, that was it. And like I said, I'm not down on anybody. I just don't think that looks good for us as a town. So I'm not blaming anybody or anything. It's just a worry I have. That's all.
Is there anybody else who has something that they'd like to bring forward for public comment? All right, seeing none, I will move on to old business. First up is the approval of the September 7, 2021 Select Board meeting minutes. Take a motion to open that item. Moved and seconded. All right, so all those in favor, Ricky? Actually, we just need a second, it's open for discussion. All right, did anybody have any questions or comments? Would you like to give to me?
good enough for me.
All right, Ricky, nothing from you? All right, Ricky, what's your pleasure?
Yes.
And Dan?
Yes.
Barbara?
Yes.
All right, 4 yeses. I do have to ask, can we get our board books back?
Man, I don't know why we're getting bundles of papers with all the books.
Well, we didn't have the books because we weren't meeting in person, but having the books makes it so much easier to just get from item to item if I forget to do this little piece. All right, next up, we had the discussion and consideration of measures to slow traffic in the village. I'll take a motion to open that item.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. That item is open for discussion. So Anthony, do you want to lead on this?
Sure. As I alerted the board after the last meeting, the DOT is undertaking an engineering 5-mile-per-hour transitional zone south of the village. Because of where we asked that it be placed, it required an engineering study. So that is underway. The Rome Select Board on the opposite end of the village has elected not to seek a 35-mile-per-hour transitional zone between their 45 and 25. They said they may do that at some future point, but they think that their flashing sign there and how long that 25-mile-per-hour zone is sufficient right now. The DOT has no funding available for the in-street pedestrian crossing signs. That's something that you guys asked about previously. The Bicycle Coalition quoted a price of $280 for those each if we go through them. That's more attractive than the $350 that I found online. Just as a reminder, we have 4 of those crosswalks, and if we wanted to do the gateway treatment, and I included some information about that in the package, that would cost an additional $300 per crosswalk. So if you were doing that, you'd essentially be spending $600 for each of those 4 crosswalks. Just some cost comparisons, the reflective borders on the 25-mile-per-hour signs like we have on West Road, those cost $145 each, as opposed to $18.60 for LED speed limit signs. And I talked to, I emailed the sheriff and the state police, and I got a call back from a state police lieutenant who had ensured that they have been doing some radar enforcement in the village and would continue to do so.
I think I saw something in one of the emails too, or somewhere that said that they were doing, somebody was doing enforcement and they really haven't found a problem. But they thought
Yeah.
people were overestimating how fast people were going. through.
That's true. Lieutenant Medor with the state police said that when you're standing on the sidewalk, when a vehicle goes by, it typically looks like it's going faster than it actually is. And he said he's been working radar enforcement in the village before and seen a car going, oh, that one's going really fast. He clicked it and it was 27 miles an hour. So the bigger the vehicle, he said, the faster it looks like it's moving, but it's not always the case.
So, and what is it called here, what the treatment things?
The pedestrian crossing signs for the gate. For the
The
gateway
gateway, yeah, so, and is that just the white things on the edges, is that what the gateway treatment is?
Yeah, so there's a picture in your packet. This picture right here is you still got the in-street pedestrian crossing sign in the middle of the road, but on each end, as you are entering that pedestrian zone, there are some white traffic delineators that are added to that.
That's basically what they have over on Mount Vernon right now, down by the fire station and stuff.
And on Water Street in Augusta, they've added some of that.
Do we have enough roadway for this?
The Bicycle Coalition felt like that there was.
Yeah, you do. It's the legal width we have down there, but I don't, it's not making a big difference at this point.
Well, because one of the concerns that folks had, there was one person that I had spoken to about it, that they were concerned with having something in the middle of the road and on the sides, because they said sometimes when the big trucks come through, if people are not parking as fabulously over as they should, that they have to move towards the middle of the outside a little bit to allow traffic to pass. And if this would become a hindrance, if you have.
Maybe we just make them slow down more.
Well, and so that was the question that they had, was if there's something in the middle and something on the side, if that creates a hindrance and for traffic.
I can tell you that the middle ones will be hit, because you can't, there's vehicles on the side of the road there, and you're going through the fire truck, you've got to be over. And because some of the vehicles either don't pull the mirrors in or are too
Right.
far up the road, so you end up over on the yellow line, and the dump trucks and tractor trailers have to do the same thing. So then middle posts would probably get pretty well destroyed fairly quick.
I don't really see why, if the road is the standard width of the road, and if we're talking about the gateway posts, as in the photo, there's not going to be a car parked right behind between the white posts and the curb.
I know what by the village inn is parking spots on both sides of the road with crosswalk is.
But not right at the crosswalk. The crosswalk, there's
No, correct.
that,
no.
not right at the crosswalk.
Right. And I can tell you when it's really busy, people continue packing where there's no parking slots. I've seen it multiple times going through, for fire. So when it's been, it's only been a few busy days of the year, but it's, maybe you pull them down from real busy, times when the place is really full. I just, my concern is if we spend that money and then they're destroyed within the first week. You know, we're out all that money. I mean, if law enforcement says that the speeds are not really breaking the speeds, you know, that bad or not at all, then I don't know what to think, you know, I don't know. I mean, yes,
I think
sometimes vehicles go pretty fast through that, I
yeah,
think,
I
but
think, I
maybe
mean, I think
it's.
I think it's worth a try. What do we have to lose by trying it?
Couple $1,000.
Anthony, will citizens be asked to give input at some point? I apologize, Bill Mitchell here. I'm not sure where we are in the protocol, whether the community can give input or is the folks that are commenting just select persons right now.
No, you're welcome to raise your hand and chime in, Bill.
Well, I'm not sure how to raise my hand other than to sort of butt in.
Oh, so if you go to the bottom of your screen for your Zoom. This one, I'm not seeing the raise your hand one.
I don't see it either, and I would have done that if I had seen it. I apologize for butting in, but when you folks will give me an opportunity to speak, I wouldn't mind making a couple of comments.
Okay, well, you have the floor now, Bill. How's that?
Wonderful. Thank you very much. And excuse me. I first of all, I want to thank all of you for working on this issue. I do think it's an important issue. And as I think you all know, my wife and I own a home right in Belgrade Village, 142 Main Street, right across the street from the Seven Lakes Resource Center. So I would say that I probably have as good of a front row seat as pretty much anybody does with what happens in the village, both during peak season, which I think we most would all agree is June, July, August. Things wind down now. There's a significant difference right now versus activity the last 3 months, plus or minus. And I would agree with, there was some comments made about sometimes it feels like the traffic is going faster than it is. I'm not sure if any of you in the last couple of months since the radar detector has been here in the village have monitored traffic relative to it feels like it's fast, but I'm looking at the radar and actually gauging that. I've spent quite a lot of time watching traffic go north, watching traffic go south. I've tried to take pictures to sort of validate some of my comments to you along the way, but it doesn't photograph that radar machine so well, so I can't validate some of these comments, but it's an issue. And I would say the majority of traffic generally abides by the speed limit range that I've talked about from the very first time. In a 25 mile per hour zone, or a 35 or a 45 or a 55, it's generally 5 to 10 miles over the limit that most people travel. And generally speaking, that's comfortable. What I would say is that in this somewhat tight quarters of the village, it's 27 is 27 wherever it is, but there is a heightened level of concern given some of the congestion, and some of my comments are because of personal concerns of my grandchildren. But I know, and I've told you folks this, as I've spoken with several folks in the village about this issue. This has been an ongoing discussion that needs resolution at this point. And anything passive is just, in my opinion, I'll just relent and I'll continue to argue the point that we need to do something more. I came to you originally suggesting the speed limit be lowered. And there was virtually absolute resistance to that notion, pointing the finger at the DOT, but we haven't even tried. And I think we should continue to consider that, because that's really the ultimate solution if we want a safer experience in the village. And In terms of these crosswalk things we put in the middle, that was my suggestion. And you know, I've offered to invest some money into this campaign, and I stand behind that. You know, obviously with an understanding that some of these things that I feel are important should be part of that. I'm not going to just write a check to something that I don't agree with, but we should budget for the fact that one or two of these things are going to get damaged over the course of the summer. That would be expected. I think I've told some of you that I had two of these little green men out front of my house urging people to slow down. We all see them. We see them in neighborhoods. We see them here and there where people are concerned that traffic is too fast. And someone stole one of our little guys and then drew graffiti on the other one. So, you know, there are some guys out there that, you know, think that this is a joke. It's not a joke. And my invitation to all of you stands. Bring your young children, your grandchildren, your 3-year-olds to my house on a busy day, okay? And let go of their hands and see how that feels, okay? And I'm pretty sure most of you will be uncomfortable with that within a minute or two and will grab the hands of your children and grandchildren. There is a safety problem, an accident problem, an accident waiting to happen in the village. And we're splitting hairs over whether it's 2,000 or 3,000 or 4,000. We're more concerned about wrecking a device that's in the middle of the road than somebody getting struck by a vehicle. I don't understand the logic behind that, to be honest about it. So I look at some of the things we've been talking about. Now I'm going to just go through a couple of other quick things, and then I'll stop. I'm sure you all know that in the village, when you're traveling north at about Hullen, there's a speed limit sign reiterating 25 miles per hour. There's not one going south. I'm sure you all know that. Maybe we should consider that. It just reiterates the importance of emphasizing the speed limit is 25. And I think that basic traffic rules and law begin with speed limit signs. So maybe we should consider putting one. Traffic going south tends to accelerate at around Hullen. I've spent all summer walking up and down the village, and it accelerates at about Hullen going south because there's not a reiteration of the speed limit in the middle of the village. In terms of encouraging traffic to slow as it approaches the village, I know there's been some discussion around LED lights versus the reflector strips. I don't know. I guess we should ask the DOT, do they have any data around which one is more effective? And if one's more effective than the other, the secondary issue should be price. The primary issue should be safety. And at $1,800, I don't think that that's a big deal for a town of this size to make sure the citizens here in the village are safe. And I just think that generally speaking, the goal here is to try to slow traffic in the village and make a safer experience for people. So I'm sorry to ramble on so long, but I just wanted to share those comments, and I appreciate you giving me the opportunity to share my opinion. Thank you.
Ellen, if you're talking, nobody can hear you, I don't think. You're muted.
There we go. Can you hear us now, Rick?
Yeah.
Okay, sorry about that.
Oh, no, thanks, Anthony. He's like in real life.
So once they received that letter, the response back from DOT was, I can't do a 45-mile-per-hour zone from Sahagan Road to where the 35-mile-per-hour is. That requires an engineering study, and so I'm gonna, he was gonna start the engineering study.
Okay, because I thought that he was like, so we can't change the speed limit without an engineering study.
No.
So then he was gonna see if we
No,
wanted that, or if we were like, okay, well, can we still do without the engineering study, that reduction in speed as you're approaching the village?
you can, but that transitional zone can be no more than 500 to 1,000 feet. No less than 500 feet, no more than 1,000 feet. If you push it back to Sahagan Road, that's more than 1,000 feet. That requires an engineering study.
So in the interim, because we all know how long engineering studies can take, will DOT put a speed limit sign there?
I asked them that, they said, no, they don't want to do things twice.
Yeah, I thought David had a good idea when he proposed that, but they shot that right now.
Well, and that's where I kind of thought we were coming back to this with this meeting, was that, these were the two options. We could do this without an engineering study, or if we're digging our heels in that we want the speed limit changed from the Sahagan Road down, then it required an engineering study.
I think if you said, Anthony, would you please let the DOT know that we're fine with the 500 to 1,000 foot? I'm sure they would go ahead and just do that. Because that's what Dave Allen told me before that he would do. But if it extends more than 1,000 feet, he's got to do an engineering study.
And where's the 1,000-foot limit?
I don't know what that is, but when I said Sahagan Road, he seemed to think that was far beyond 1,000 feet.
And I agree, if you're talking signs, I agree with Mr. Mitchell. If there's not a sign headed southbound midway of the village, which now that he mentioned that, I don't think there, I'm pretty sure there isn't, he's right.
I think it's because you've got the one northbound, because you come off the West Road. You have to have one after you enter heading north on 27.
But I think he's right, because people start, once they go past days, people start picking up speed pretty quick after days still. I mean, I see it, working in the lakes, I see that. I mean, you can hear the motors revving up as they, once they clear days, they start speeding up, because I think they think they're out of the 25 miles an hour zone.
Plus days is bottleneck
Right,
that area.
but I do think that would help some too, also. I mean,
So is that speed limit sign something that we can do as a municipality, or does that have to be, is that a DOT, because it's a state road, is that a DOT?
I would want to check with the DOT, since it is a state roadway, to see if we have the authority to erect a sign.
And do they put speed limit signs in a village area because it's already congested? So is that,
There's already one going north in that village area. Look at this one on the other side of the road. Going the other way.
it sounded like they wanted one like in the middle of the village. Is that what I was hearing?
Yeah,
Bill?
by
Am I
Hewlin
wrong
Road.
with that?
Yeah, I think David is exactly right. That's meant for traffic coming off of the West Road, so when they come off the West Road, they know what the speed limit is as they're heading north.
But there isn't one if you're staying on 27.
Yeah, coming south, you've got the 27, and typically, unless you've got another access road coming into it, that you can head south on, they won't put one.
There's a sidewalk is on that side of the road, so
Right.
Well, it just goes on something long.
somebody would have to go on someone's lawn.
I mean, we can check. I have no problem.
I mean, I think that would help some too. I mean, he's right. I mean, if you're up there, you can hear it. I mean, I'm sitting in the crosswalk and you can hear them accelerate as they go past days, they start really accelerate.
Well, and I've had other folks say that they'll start across the road, they hear the traffic coming and boot scoot back because they sound like they're coming quickly. So if we put a sign there, does it make sense that we consider using some of the, the yellow tape or whatever, then to call attention to the sign?
You could put some sort of border or
Something reflective
flags
or,
or something on it to call attention to it.
Anthony, may I make a comment, please? I'm sorry, I don't mean to be butting in.
sure, Bill.
So, may I ask what the hesitation is about LEDs? They seem to be pretty effective. They're solar, so there's no ongoing operational costs. What's the hesitation with the LEDs? I think they're very effective. Whether it's daylight or nighttime, they're going to pop probably more than anything. I'm just curious what the town's hesitation is around LEDs, please.
I don't know that it's a big hesitation, Bill. I think that we're always trying to watch out for the bottom dollar always. And I know you did say that you would invest some in that. But at the same time, we're always cognizant of what it's going to cost. There's going to be upkeep no matter what it is. So we're always reflective of what we're going to put on to people past the point of the decision we make today. So if signs with reflective tape around them are as effective as an LED sign, because then you put an LED sign up and then we have a neighbor complaining that when that's flashing, it's now flashing in their living room window and it's making it hard for them to do this or that. So there's always a repercussion no matter what it is that we decide. So I think we're just trying to look at all of the options and then come up with the one that seems to work best to handle the concerns in the town as well as, how you move forward.
Sure.
And if one doesn't work, then we have an alternative.
And I think
I'm not
Melanie,
speaking for everyone,
and I think Melanie, if I may, I think that that logic is sound for sure. I'm assuming you've all done a study around you put tape around a sign and in 5 years it needs to be replaced, but an LED lasts 20 years. I'm assuming the analysis has been done around that. I just, I think it's safety first. Safety first. You have a citizen who's willing to make the upfront investment that would cover, I think, almost 100% of the cost of what we're talking about here, with a couple of signs having LEDs and some of these signs and crosswalks. I think you've got somebody that's going to cover a good part of that. So town outlay going in is minimal. And the longer view of safety and so forth, I think precedents the pennies that we're talking about in terms of taxpayer dollars, if pennies really, if even that, at an individual level for the greater safety of the community. So with that, I'm going to wrap up. I've said my piece. You folks will do what you do. I'm sure you'll make great judgments around how to best control speed within the village and improve the safety environment there for all that spend time here. So thank you again for giving me an opportunity to speak tonight.
Bill, I have a question, if I can ask you a question.
Sure, Barbara, thank you.
Where do you see the LED speed limit signs being placed in the village?
Well, part of the trick, I think, Barbara, is the town of Rome, and that was another comment I was going to make. The town of Rome is suggesting right now they don't want to do anything. I mean, I guess what I would want to do is sit down with the town of Rome. I can't imagine why they wouldn't be willing to work with us. But I'd be happy to make some. I don't know anybody on the town council there, but I'd be certainly happy to participate in conversations to discuss that with them. But it seems like it would start on the outer ends and make sure that people know coming in that the speed limit is 25. It's this issue about, the DOT and the way they approach things is always interesting to me. But we'll do the study and do what we have to do and hopefully show that speed should be reduced. 55 to 35, it's aggressive. But I think the outer speed limit signs would be the ones that make the most sense. But it's interesting, having spent lots of time now walking in and out of around the village and noticing the missing speed limit sign going south. There should be some there maybe too. But then again, that would be inconsistent with the town's view of investing money in a situation like this. And in the perfect world, I'd put them in both places, on the outer ends and those two right around Holland, and then slow it down at the crosswalk. There were comments made earlier about, the big trucks that come through and will there be room? The road was redesigned by the DOT to be compliant with all the most current codes. So I believe there's adequate width in the road for traffic, even including the big trucks to pass through. They just have to slow down a little bit. That's what it boils down to, and that's the core of the issue, is if they don't slow down, they're gonna wipe out 1 or 2 or 3 of these things a year. They might ding somebody's mirror parked on the road because they won't slow down. And if they slow down, I would predict that a slow moving Mack truck, dump truck will be able to fit through unless someone's parked illegally sticking out into the lane. But if they're within the allocated parking stall, I believe that a slower moving Mack truck will pass without incident.
Now, you mentioned, Bill, too, wanting the speed limit reduced in the village. And what is your thought there? Are you thinking 20 miles an hour? And is this something that, have you talked to others about that, or is that, does 20 miles an hour seem appropriate? Because if DOT is going to engineer a study.
I thought DOT has already said they wouldn't, because it's a through road, that they wouldn't go below 25.
The DOT said there's virtually 0 chance that they would lower the speed limit below 25.
Okay.
Yeah, so I think that's
Well, so Anthony, I would push back a little bit on that, and I would agree. There's probably virtually 0 chance they will. I know Dave Allen is our local representative for the DOT, but I would encourage the town to escalate that conversation, and I would do it in person. I would ask for an in-person meeting with the highest authority in the DOT, and Dave is certainly welcome to be part of that conversation. But I would, and I'd be happy to be part of that conversation, and push for something a little bit different. But to the question, I came in saying 15 miles an hour, and there were people in the village that said that's just not going to happen, and it's not advantageous, to go quite that aggressive. 20 makes more sense. So my approach to all of these things is trying to build a little bit of consensus around things, and I hope you folks have seen that now in me, to try to, bring sort of a bigger view together where there's some consensus around things, and have a good outcome that most people feel comfortable with. The general consensus, and I have not expanded my group. I'm not going to suggest that I've gone out to a larger volume of people in the village to ask their opinion on this matter. But the ones that I have, and I think you all will recognize some of these names, are Dave's Store, the Village Inn, Bill Pulsifer, Seven Lakes Inn, which I know are newer folks, okay? The Tripp family, which is a long-term family here as well. All of these folks and others, the Nichols, who have been here for 50, 60, 70 years, and so forth, have all agreed with me on this matter, that we should try all we can to slow traffic in the village. So I think to answer the question, 20 would be, I think, a good place, because 20 gets us 25 to 30. 25 gets us 30 to 35. right? That 5 to 10 mile over the limit that we generally travel as we all drive around. And I know earlier a gentleman made a comment that, 28 is within this 27, whatever it was, even 25 on the dot. I'm just telling you, when your little kids are running around, and there are people everywhere in this village, you folks know this, I'm not telling you anything you don't know, on a Sunday or a Saturday, Friday afternoon, when things are picking up in the village, which is a really good thing. It's a great thing for this town to have this amazing village. It is a safety, I go as far as saying a safety nightmare at times. I watch it day in, day out. People, trying to make their way along the roads, and traffic is going, in all directions fast. It's a concern. It's not just about my grandchildren. It's about the greater good here, the greater safety that I think we need to address once and for all.
Thank you. What are your thoughts? I don't see, if DOT has already said no to 20 miles an hour, it's a state through road. So I don't see that as meeting with any higher ups. I think that in getting everything that we got with the village from DOT, that we've used a lot of our cards with them, and they went above and beyond with, they could have taken people's property to build that road, and they worked with the town for years to make that road just barely as wide as it needed to be. And they've done everything that we've asked them to do, and then some. So I don't always want to be the thorn in their side, demanding something else from them. And if they've already come to us and said, it's a state throughway, 25 miles an hour is as low as it's gonna go, then I think that we need to say, okay.
Yeah, we tried to get the speed limit reduced out here from the bridge coming past the school down to 45.
Right, because
And
of
they
the
would not-
accidents.
And they would not do it. They wanted to do it because of people pulling in and out of the ball fields and everything else.
Right, and park it on the side of the road, and the kids on the side of the road, and wanted that to be a little bit safer, and they said no.
As far as the electronic signs, if somebody wants to purchase them, I have no problem putting them up. I would recommend in front of the TDS substation, because it's just north of the West Road intersection. And it's not gonna make a difference to TDS because it's not a residence. The other one I would recommend down by the dam on Belgrade's property, just after the dam. That way it's, again, not affecting anybody's residence.
Yeah.
They're all things.
Yeah, those are both good spots. What are your thoughts with that, Bill? Did you check out?
See you down.
No, I'm here. I'm sorry. So I'm just trying to have my bearings here. So I apologize. I'm just trying to get my head around where we're talking about. So coming from the north, coming into the village from the north. So just as we come into the Belgrade town line, and then a new sign that would be somewhere like around Holland or somewhere in that area. Is that what I heard?
And that's Menzel Park. We own the little strip of land just after the bridge dam.
Yeah. So one there.
And there already is a flashing light sign coming down from Rome.
But that's in Rome.
Yeah,
far.
that's in Rome, and it's a little far, it is a little far away to be effective.
Right.
And then the other one, you got TDS or whatever, the telecommunications place.
Oh,
just
yeah, yeah.
After our Veterans Memorial.
Coming north. Coming
yeah.
north.
That way, people coming off the West Road would see that sign, and people coming into the village would see that sign.
Yeah. That's a good, I think that's a good approach.
Can I chime in? I've been trying to raise my hand. There's no way to raise my hand.
Sorry. But yes, please.
I wouldn't want to see any LED flashing lights in the middle of the village. I mean, if you want to put them on either end, that's fine. But I'm not interested in coming down into the village and seeing LED flashing lights. Man, we just redid the whole village. We got nice brick sidewalks, we're getting trees growing again, we're starting to make it a nice quaint little village, and we want flashing lights in the middle of the village. I'm not interested in that at all. I don't mind trying to slow down traffic, maybe with your other things, but I would not want to see LED flashing lights in the middle of the village. Either end, sure, fine, go for it. But in the middle of the village, no, thank you.
It's a good point. I can't disagree with you.
I
Maybe we
recommended
could
those
do-
locations.
Yeah.
Maybe we could do this in stages. Maybe we could start with reflective tape around the signs and with 4 gateway installations at the crosswalks with 1 in reserve. And see if that makes a difference while we're waiting for the engineering study. Well, you know,
Because high season's kind of done in the village. So we would really see the most effectiveness next year.
yeah,
Yes.
next spring.
And just so you're clear, the Bicycle Coalition is willing to help us with the installation of the in-street pedestrian signs and the gateway treatments, but that would not be until the spring.
And with the gateway, with those posts, how are they installed? They don't go into the actual,
No, I think there's some kind of a rubber base.
Rubber base.
It's like those
Rubber
things up on
base.
Route 811.
That's
They
Yeah.
exactly
drill, they
right.
drill
Okay.
holes, drop pins in the road,
okay,
and then in the winter, they have to pull
Because isn't it the one in the middle of the road, is that just a sand weighted base?
It is. Now, it might be able to be secured to the roadway, but you know, it would have to come out for plowing purposes
Oh, yeah.
in the winter time.
Well, all of that stuff would have to be out for
Yeah,
planning purposes.
Ricky has his hand up.
Ricky?
It's been so long, I almost forgot what I was gonna say. Yeah. I was gonna ask Anthony a question. Doesn't that speed limit sign that you've got in the middle of the lakes down there, doesn't that collect data?
It does, and that's a good point, Rick. I thought about that same thing, is that if the board would find it helpful, we could pull what the data has been from the period that it's been sitting there.
And the other question is, couldn't we get another one of those and put one of those up at each end of town so people can see how fast they're going?
We
That,
could,
am I correct?
yes, we
I've noticed
could.
it. I've noticed they've done that in some other towns around the school areas and stuff like that, where there's really a lot of kids running around. But if they're free, why don't we get one to put at the north end of the lakes and one to put at the south end? And it flashes if you're going over the speed limit.
Yeah. So you're right, Rick. We did get that one for free, but the DOT only gives one of those for free to a community. After that, you're on your own. And if memory serves me correctly, I think those signs cost somewhere in the neighborhood of about $5,000. I could be wrong about that, but that's the number that's in my brain right now.
But let's ask them.
Okay.
Do any harm to ask? Maybe some town didn't want one. I didn't vote for that one when it came into this town. In fact,
Well, maybe,
I don't think any of the board members did.
if they let us borrow it, maybe they have one that we can borrow for a little bit of time. But didn't we just buy a trailer, Ricky, to put this one on?
We did.
And I do want to emphasize a little bit about trucks going through Belgrade Lakes with some middle of the road. I drive through there quite often in a big truck. And fine, if not a car on the side decides to open the door up, that's what we're not even talking about. Somebody opens the door up, I tell you, you go on the other side of the line. You got them. You're gonna hit them. You can sit there and tell them it's not gonna happen. I drive one, I know. And those stakes that they put up on Route 8, too, you ought to see a tractor trailers go through there. They just run over them. They have to. They can't get around the corners. I mean, they think they got the world cured, but it's not.
Well, and I was over here thinking when Bruce said people don't put their mirrors in, I was like, crap, that's me. I never put my mirrors in when I park.
I'm not worried about the mirror. I mean, I'm worried about the door. or the person getting out of the car.
Mhm.
And it's not at the crosswalks. It's all the way down the street on a busy Friday or Saturday night. You know, or Friday during the afternoon or Saturday during the day. It's busy through there, no doubt about it. You gotta go slow, and you cannot go over 15 to 20 miles an hour with that truck. Just no way. I've done it several times this summer just to find out. We can beat on this all night long. We've got a long agenda, so we better think about what we're gonna do.
Well, that's what I was gonna wait and see if anybody wanted to make a motion. Bill, if we make a motion that we put a sign at either end, so not in the middle of the town,
And LED sign.
an LED sign, are you still willing to contribute to that?
Yes, what I would ask is that we also add to that the pedestrian signs in the crosswalks. And Rick, I just want to, I agree with you on everything you just said. There's nothing we don't agree on in what you just said. If you remember at the very beginning, I asked for these radar devices at either end of the town. And your comment about you have to go 15 or 20 to make it safe through the village is exactly the point I've been trying to make from the very beginning. So I agree 100% with everything Rick just said. So yes, so Melanie, I would be, and will continue, will be supportive of a motion that would put LEDs at either end. But I would ask that we still have the sidewalk crossing pedestrian markers as part of that as well.
The gateway markers. Well, that's what I wanted to make sure that if there was this and this part of a motion, the other piece that we would have to discuss is where the money would come for the.
And let me reiterate that I offered up $4,000 for this, and I stand behind that.
This is the sidewalk package we have for about this year's budget.
Why don't we just hold off on that until we see what Anthony finds out on those limit signs, see if we can get another one. The next meeting, if they says no, then we can make a motion and do something then.
It seems like we're not going, nothing is going to be installed until spring anyway, so. But I think we've said a lot about this issue. We need to, at some point, make a decision.
Right. Well, LED signs could be installed before.
That's correct. They
The
can be installed
LED
as soon as
signs could
we- as soon as we obtain them.
And
Okay.
you could do the pedestrian walkway, the delineators now and just pull them up, but at least get them.
Or just the ones, not the posts, but just the signs in the middle, the
Yeah.
pedestrian right of way. We could get those anytime, right?
Well, you can still pull the data off the speed limit sign that's there too, before you make a decision to see what the data is.
Yeah, I'd like to see that. Okay, so I make a motion that one, the town pulls the data from that speed trap sign. Two. Where would we pull the money from to pull that? Where would we get the money from if the town purchases? We would probably want to do 5 of the ones in the middle of the road, so we
I
have.
think Bill's
spare.
willing to include that in his. Oh, no, the $4,000 would be 2 LED lights.
Right,
You'd have to pull that out of your road budget, wouldn't you?
So, and I did include a note in the memo, so our road maintenance budget is about $156,000. To date, we've spent about $79,000 for that. So, we have approximately $75,000 for us.
So we could purchase 5 yield to pedestrian and walkway signs at the town expense and hold off on the posts until next spring. If we want the posts at that time.
What kind of money you talking about? Where's that coming from?
From the road maintenance, excuse me, the road maintenance budget, Rick, that was $156,000 budget for the year, and to date, we have spent $79,000 of that $156,000.
I don't know if you can do that. You're talking a state road, a town road. That might be town roads. That's up to you guys. If you want to try that, fine. I don't agree with that.
I think you ought to stick to the motion, Melanie. Pull the data first.
Okay.
Let's find out what's going on.
Okay.
And then we can make a motion on the rest of this and find out.
Okay.
In the meantime, we can figure out where this money got to come from.
So one other option, and you don't have to decide this tonight, but we do have a roads capital reserve. And so it's not for maintenance, it's for capital items. And you can make an argument that these are capital items.
Again, that's for town roads. That is a state road up there and federal, if I recall, right?
Melanie and Anthony, I would just say that it would seem like the town money can be directed where the town wants to direct its money. Whether it's a state road or federal road, if the town wants to invest its money in safety for its citizens in a state road, who is going to tell you no, other than this group right here? Period. I say just go do it once and for all. We're splitting hairs on pennies here. Let's just make the investment in safety in the village and get this done once and for all.
Whatever you want to do.
Let's pull the data.
Okay. I make a motion that the first step is that we pull the data from the speed sign that we have and that we put that data out to the board and that we reconvene at our next meeting with step 2. Moved and seconded. Any further discussion?
Tell me that motion again. It's hard to hear it.
Okay, sorry. So the motion on the floor, Ricky, is that we do this in stages. So the motion on the floor is that we pull the data from the speed sign that's there. How long is the data stored, Anthony? Like, can we go back from the date we put that there?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
So the motion on the floor is to pull the data, supply that data to the select board, and we'll have this as an old business item on the next agenda where we can review the data and then move on to step 2.
Melanie, can I make one more comment, please, and then I'll stop? What do you folks expect? What do you folks expect the data to say? And what if it says that 90% of the people travel under 30 miles per hour and 10% go over 30 and 6% do this and 4% do what's the metrics here? What are you trying to measure up against? And so if you're going to say you want to watch the data, you ought to have a metrics now. Let's debate that for the next half hour and put this off for another meeting or two. I don't understand what we're debating here. The data is the data, I suppose, but if it says 100% of people travel 25 miles per hour or less, are we then going to say, well, it's you know, what all that we've been talking about is for nothing? I don't understand what the metrics here you folks are trying to build around the data, and who's going to analyze it and make the determination of what's right and what's wrong. So give me a response on that, please. But what are we wasting our time here for? We know we have an issue. There's a consensus in the village about this issue, and we're going to put it off another meeting, and then that meeting will analyze the data, and then we'll want to have somebody analyze that data, and then 6 months later we'll still be having the same conversation. I just I'm gonna mute now and sign off. You folks go figure it out, but I don't understand what we're still debating here. So anyways, have a good night.
You too. All right, so that's the motion on the floor. And I guess if our data shows that people are speeding through the town, we can pass that on to the state.
But
police
that gives
and
us,
sheriff's
that gives us
department.
further ammunition. It gives us ammunition that we can use for the state and for the state police and sheriff
And also how far we want to go to trying to remediate.
and to our own citizens as to why it's worth spending this money.
Mhm. if it doesn't seem like a big amount.
And it'll also give us time to look into the question of whether we are authorized to put in our own speed limit signs on the state road.
All right, so there's a motion on the floor. Is there a second? Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Seeing none. Ricky?
Yes.
Okay, Dan?
Yes.
Barbara?
Yes,
All right, 4 yeses. Okay. New business. Discussion and consideration of proposed amendments to the Board of Appeals ordinance. I'll take a motion to open that item.
so moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. That item is open.
So this is strictly housekeeping in nature. There are no substantive changes that are being proposed here. This was initiated when one of our appeals board members, Dick Bourne, noticed that in section 8, under the appeal procedure, there was a reference to section 6 that instead needed to read section 5. And so that resulted in a review of the entire document. The changes are meant just to have consistent language throughout. We're switching from select men to select persons, for instance. And so it's really all just grammatical in nature, with the exception of correcting that one error. Now, there is one paragraph B in section 6 that the appeals board is suggesting be eliminated altogether. And that's just for redundancy's sake. Earlier in this ordinance, that same paragraph appeared. So they were just trying to reduce that for redundancy's sake. So if the select board approves of these changes, then this is something that we'll propose to voters at town meeting, and we'll, give people an opportunity to speak at it during the required public hearing.
All right, so under appointments, under B, would probably be neither a select person nor his or her spouse.
Oh, you know what? Yes, it's that should read select person, and I think that you guys may have an early generation of this, because we did, I know that we did end up correcting it, but I will definitely make a note about that.
That was the only one that I had found. I don't know if the town ever adopted select persons. I thought it was a million years ago. There was one other woman on the board, and then.
I'm sick of the politically correct.
Yeah, and I don't
Because in the
think,
state, it's selectmen.
I don't think that we ever like made some sort of a decision, but I think it was, I remember at a meeting, it was like, well, nobody minded one way or the other.
Yeah.
So they were
Remember
like,
Penny
oh,
Penny
interesting.
insisted
We
her
need
say
a vote, do
select.
we need a vote on this?
Yeah, she's.
We need a vote on this.
So we need to take a vote, Anthony, to send this back to the Board of Appeals.
Well, I don't think it needs to return to the Board of Appeals. I mean, this is their recommendation to you that you approve this.
It's good to
Send it
know.
to the public hearing.
So I'll make that motion.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion?
And so the movement, the motion is to approve it and send it to
To
a
approve
public
it,
hearing.
because it's gonna go to public.
Okay,
This is from the planning board, is that correct? These changes?
The appeals board, Rick.
Yeah, but- okay, thank you.
All right, so Ricky, what's your pleasure?
Yes,
Dan,
Yes.
Barbara?
yes,
All right, 4 yeses. All right, moving right along. Discussion and consideration of code enforcement services. Open that,
so moved.
Second.
moved and seconded. It's open for discussion.
And I sent you guys an email earlier today, and I included that printed email when you arrived today. Do you want me to outline the options, at least as I see them at this point? You guys may have other ideas about how we could move forward in trying to ensure code enforcement services.
Yes, please.
Okay, so as I said, these are the options that, as I see them, we could pursue any, all, or none of these. The first one is we could do what we've done in the recent past, which is hire a code enforcement officer to work 25 hours a week. I'd like to have authorization, regardless of sort of where we land, to start advertising the position tomorrow in all the usual places. Fair warning, hiring is going to be a challenge. There are not many people who are interested in serving as code enforcement officers in our state at this point in time. But I am encouraged that a local resident who has a background that I could foresee serving as a code enforcement officer has contacted me expressing some interest.
Is this the plumber that expressed interest
No.
previously?
No.
Okay.
A part-time code enforcement officer in another community has contacted me expressing potential interest. If we were to hire someone who is not currently a code enforcement officer, they would have to be certified as a CEO and LPI within a year. The state offers that training for free. Much of it can be conducted online if the municipality has appointed that person to that position. One of the things that we could do is we could seek to recruit someone that we think would be good in that job. The Kennebec Valley Council of Governments right now has a task force looking at how the COG can help communities address this issue. And one of the ideas is actively recruiting in the construction trades for people who no longer want to live that lifestyle, or maybe their bodies are breaking down. So, we could potentially recruit someone to fill that job. So that's option one, is hiring a 25-hour-a-week CEO. Another option is we could look to partner with another town, as we have with our second full-time firefighter, as we did with Rome, to offer a full-time position with benefits. And that may help in the recruiting process, simply because a lot of CEOs who work for small towns have to cobble together a living by serving 2 or more communities. Reedfield and Wayne are currently engaged in a collaborative effort like this, and the Reedfield town manager tells me it's working pretty well. I think there are some area towns who would be interested in exploring the possibility of that with us. Now, we don't know that we'd be able to reach any sort of agreement with those towns, but I think there's some interest because everybody's sort of in the same boat of, if you're not currently needing a CEO, at some point you will. And that's a little bit of a scary proposition. Obviously, if we were to engage in a partnership with a town that already has a CEO, we would want to make sure that that person is a good fit for our community. Another option is we could consolidate the CEO duties with other job duties within the town to create a full-time position. That might add value to the CEO position. Once upon a time, the town had a CEO and an LPI. Those 2 people weren't the same.
I was gonna ask, when was that?
Mary and Dan had both told me that was something that was done.
When I first moved to town, the guy lived over by the
It
windmill.
was 12 Martin.
That's right. Because I was trying to, when I read that, I was like,
Yeah.
when was that? I was like, gosh, I don't remember that, but I do remember Bob Martin being.
When I first
part of
started in the
inspector.
business. that's
Yeah.
what it was.
And so I don't know if separating those positions would make it easier to fill each position or harder. I don't know. And lastly, I think, at some point, we're going to be hiring someone, I would think. And we may want to decide on who serves on that interview panel. And I sent you some suggestions today of some folks I think would be good to serve on a panel, given their roles within our organization. But if you guys have other ideas, we should definitely discuss those.
Well, for years I've said, I feel like if we consolidated with area communities, because something that happens on Belgrade's side affects Smithfield and Rome and Mount Vernon and, the way to Mercer or something, right?
You may want to speak up a little bit.
Oh, sorry.
I don't know if Rick can hear you.
Sorry. So, I thought in the past that consolidating that with another community makes sense. However, if, I don't know how many hours they tend to work in other communities, but if they already have someone for 25 hours, we couldn't have them for 25 hours because that were 40 hours, we would be trying to figure that piece out as far as overtime goes.
Yeah. I think just talking with other small communities around us, Melanie, I think we actually have the most code enforcement hours of any community. So, it might be that we would have that person for 24, 25 hours, and the other town might have them for 15 to 16 hours.
So that seems to me to be one of the best solutions, I think, finding someone to do that. I mean, we had Gary for 15 hours for how many years? It was only recently that we bumped
Yeah,
up to
a lot of years.
25 hours. Oops,
There was another town that he was also CEO of, so.
right, Sydney. So
and he's on the
has
sector.
Sydney said how they're gonna move forward?
Yes, so Sydney, their select board met last night, and they apparently are going to be interviewing someone next Monday night, and they feel very good about the prospects of hiring that person.
For how many hours?
I don't know, Dan. I know that Gary worked fewer hours in Sydney than he worked here.
I think it was 15.
I was thinking it was somewhere around there too, Bruce.
So I mean, that might be a consideration if they have something that they're only gonna have to work that many hours, maybe if you want a full-time job.
Now, I think the challenge may be that some communities might not want to pay benefits.
That's what I was just gonna say, is I feel like that would be, because if we split the benefit package, depending on hours or however that would work,
Yeah.
so.
So a benefits package is approximately $10,000 a year. So, if it were a 50-50 split, which it probably wouldn't be, it would be 5,000 each. But somewhere in that ballpark.
Somewhere, if they were 15 hours, somewhere 25 here, you're talking 7,000, 3,000.
Right,
But, a community may be able to be convinced that, hey, if you pay that $3,000 or $4,000, that gives you some security that you're going to have that person, hopefully for a longer period of time, than not giving them benefits.
all right, then have them take a position and they're looking for a full-time job elsewhere. Oops.
I just can tell you that in that field, most of it, a lot of that field is at retirement age and that field is starting to wonder. I mean, it's getting tougher and tougher. I mean, another community, I know has been struggling to hold the CEO is Manchester. And I don't know how many hours a week their CEO was there, but that'd be another community to look at, because I know they've been struggling to hold it.
Yeah. Bruce is exactly right. That discussion's been had within the COG that it's like our volunteer firefighters. Most of them are aging out of the profession and it's not being replenished with young blood.
There seems to be a lot of turnover in towns and stuff with CEOs. And the benefit of Gary being here was he was from our town and he wasn't interested, so he stuck with it. And so, that's another option as well, is to find somebody within our town that's interested in doing it, that would stick with it because they're from our town.
Well, and we talked to Anthony about this a little bit earlier, just that if we find someone from Belgrade or someone who at least lives near enough to Belgrade, that they have a vested interest in making sure that things are done properly, versus hiring someone, say, who lives in Augusta and comes to Belgrade just to do code enforcement here, may not have the same level of concern, or, I guess I don't probably know the best way to say it, but that they may not have a vested interest because it's just a job. But for Gary, it was, this is where he lives. And these are the people that he knows. So I don't know that we'll find anybody with that same comfort level with the citizens and the contractors and that, but we've got to try to find a fix.
I mean, it seems like we need to be flexible and, let you explore a number of different options.
And I think if you're comfortable with all of these options, I agree, Barbara, that everything should be on the table.
Right.
So
I mean,
that we don't-
it could take years to get another town to agree, or we might find a candidate before we have an agreement with another town, and we just need to find someone.
That's right. Yeah, and our timetables have to align. So if there's a town that has a May or June town meeting and we have a March town meeting, then, we gotta figure out how that will line up.
How long is Dave Savage from Oakland willing to be the interim?
So, as you know, Craig, Mr. Savage has a full-time job in Oakland. And we are super appreciative that he is willing to do the basic work for us of issuing permits and conducting inspections. I told him that we were not going to drag our feet on this because I don't want to overtax him. And he's being a great neighbor to us. And I don't want to take advantage of that. He hasn't given me a drop dead date. I think he's willing to work with us, but I want to be cognizant that he already has a full-time commitment with the town of Oakland.
Yeah.
All right. Does anybody else have any thoughts in here?
I think we would just let Anthony go and explore all the options.
Talk to the other towns and see. And
Advertise the job,
Yeah, right.
talk to towns, put it out and.
Yeah. Unfortunately, this board did just update the job description for that probably about a year or so ago. So I think you were on the board by
I
then.
don't even think it was the year well.
Yeah,
It must
doesn't
have
seem
been
like that.
last fall, wasn't it?
Yeah,
So I think we're, that's in good shape. And so we can go ahead and put that out there as well.
I think exploring all the options is the best move too.
it seems like then we don't tie ourselves to one. And what we need in the meantime is coverage.
Yeah.
Do we need a vote on this or just?
So,
I don't think a vote is necessary. I think
Okay.
you've given me my marching orders.
March away.
Rick, do you have anything you want to add to that?
Asking me?
Yeah. You talking to me?
I'm thinking, and that's dangerous, but we want to make sure we take our time and we get somebody that's going to work with everybody. We don't want somebody that's going to come in here and be a bull and tick everybody off in the town right off the bat. It's going to take, you're going to have to interview a few. You're going to have to really do an investigation on them because there's some ones out there that really tick people off quick. I'll tell you right now, and I could name a few of the towns, but I'm not going. We've been spoiled, man. When it's gonna be tough to fill those shoes. You don't realize it unless you're a contractor out there working every day and an inspection, and they come right out that day. You call another town, I'll be out Wednesday, and this is on Friday. So what do? Pick up all your equipment, and go home? That's what we got to look at. What's going to accommodate all the people?
Well, and I think probably the only thing that I would worry about would be that I don't want the town to be the training ground for a brand new CEO who won't have certification for a year. I feel like with our shoreline zoning and a lot of the stuff that we already have in the works, that if we can find someone who has some level of understanding and professionalism, and maybe a little bit of time under their belt, that they could maybe step in a little bit easier.
Just on a word of caution, I mean, as like Ricky, as a contractor, you gotta be careful because there's some of these guys out there like that. And the reason they don't have full-time jobs or have multiple other towns is because they come in and they, hate to say it, but they try to make a name for themselves right off the bat. And when they try to make a name for themselves, now they just made it impossible for your in-town businesses to survive, to operate. This is gonna be a very, very hard position to fill. And unfortunately, Melanie, you are gonna train probably whoever you're gonna get.
I mean, I understand we're gonna train them the way that we need to, but not necessarily have somebody
I think you're gonna have
fresh.
somebody somewhat green, somebody that's been in the trades, more than likely, but somebody that's not certified or licensed is probably where you're gonna get, because you check, I mean, I deal with towns all the way to the coast, and most of the CEOs are all, that are in these towns that are not, up to the retirement age, are all young, they were green, they came in, they trained, I mean, Gary did before he left Augusta. Gary trained 4 guys, and only one of them guys is still in Augusta. The rest of them in other towns, because Augusta was the recruitment center, and once they get the training, they went boom, 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 boom.
And I do think also it's important to remember, everyone loved Gary. Gary started off with 0 experience in the
Exactly.
field. When he was hired by the city of Augusta, he had 0 experience as a code enforcement officer or in the construction trades. So, again, I just think we have to be open to all options and be, as I think Bruce just said, be particular about which ones we end up choosing.
If you don't, you're gonna have a lot of illegal stuff going on that you're never gonna know about. They're not gonna bother to call anybody. They're just gonna do it, and the fine penalties, and be on with life.
Okay.
I will definitely keep you folks in the loop.
All right, next up, we have discussion and consideration of a contract with KB Carr for the Commercial Development Review Ordinance Assistance. Take a motion for that.
So moved.
Moved and seconded, it's open for discussion. So I did ask Anthony to provide us with what we have for a contractual agreement with them already. What do we get for our dues, essentially? And I think this is the first time that it's sort of come back and been like, well, we've already spent a lot of hours on this, so if we're gonna help any more, then there's gonna be extra cost involved. And I didn't know, do we have something from them that says at a certain point, they just don't help with that extra money?
No, I just think from their position, and I understand it, I mean, they've spent an inordinate amount of time with us on the subdivision ordinance, which is a very complex ordinance. 91 hours, and it's not unprecedented that they don't charge us for additional or specific services. For instance, when they helped with the drafting of the comprehensive plan, they had an agreement with the town on how much that would cost. It wasn't covered under our membership. And so I understand their position, and what they're proposing is an agreement for a price not to exceed $2,750. We could have it just as a on-demand general services planning contract, or specific to the scope of the update to the commercial development review ordinance. And for our audience, what we're looking to do here is amend the commercial development review ordinance to cover solar farms, wind farms, and telecommunications towers. And so Charles Tellman, who is the most recent Kennebec Valley Council of Government planner who worked with us on the subdivision ordinance, thinks this should be a fairly easy effort. I mean, ideally we would spend less than what KDCOG is proposing as a cap here, because he's saying it's really a matter of providing some template ordinances to the planning board. And I presented the one, Dan, that you sent us from Chelsea for the solar ordinance, having them look over that and asking any questions. And in fact, the state did approve some legislation that sort of dictates how the decommissioning of solar farms is going to go. So, from that standpoint, that part of the amendments has been settled for all intents and purposes. So, and then once the planning board has their questions answered, it's a matter of sort of cutting and pasting into the ordinance that we have right now. So, if we want KDCOG's help with this will be the price. Oh, the other thing I do want to mention is they're willing to sign a contract with us now and then bill us in 2022 so that we can build that cost into our planning board budget in 2022.
Peter, do you see any more ordinances that we're gonna need KV Cog's help with in the near future, or once we do the subdivision, the solar and wind and that one, are we kind of caught up on reviewing and updating our ordinances at that point?
Hi, everybody. I would say we'd have caught up on some of the major ones, but I would caution everybody and say we probably look at some of the smaller ones as well. So the big heavy hitter ones probably caught up, but probably should look at some of the smaller ones that don't get much attention. So therefore, yes, getting KV Cog's review on some of those could be very helpful. So I would envision a little bit of help from them going forward.
Okay, because it kind of looks, so I guess that's where I want to know, like, what exactly do we get for our membership with them? I know they've been helpful with us in the past, but looking at this, it looks like they're stating, we're done. We're asking that any future ordinance updating projects have a way of funding them. So then if we're gonna fund their assistance for every time we ask for assistance, then this is gonna come back to where it was when people were fighting that we didn't need to have a membership with KV Cog. And for a while, we contemplated not having them at all. So if we have to pay this upfront cost every time we do need their assistance, what are we getting that's part of theirs, they quoted free of charge? Because it's not free, we pay for it.
Yeah, so, and I just have a different read on this, Melanie. I don't think that they're telling us from now on, we're always going to pay extra for planning
It
services.
does say that, it says, we would ask that future ordinance updating projects have some way of funding as not to exhaust our technical assistance time pool. The suggested arrangements also represent a discounted membership hourly rate that should show good value for the money. So that clearly says,
Well, I think frankly, it'd be part of the negotiations, like, hey, can you help us with this? Okay, well, how many hours do you think it's gonna take? We think it's gonna take 20 hours. Well, you know, and then you can negotiate from there.
well, I don't want to negotiate every time we need their assistance. And if we feel like we have to negotiate every time we need their assistance, then is there somebody we can use that's not KV Cog and have the same level of technical experience and things that we could be using?
Yeah, I don't know who that would be. But I would also say that, you know, KV Cog's menu of services goes beyond planning. I mean, planning is important for sure, but they provide a lot of support for our solid waste function. You know, they've been able to help us reduce our costs when it comes to purchasing road salt and culverts and those sort of things. And so, and two, you know, right now they're working on the very issue we were just talking about code enforcement to see if, you know, we might be able to, at some point, we may need to plug into whatever solution that they come up with.
Bruce?
What is our dues every year to them?
It is about $7,500, Bruce, if memory serves me correctly.
Because I do know there was,
Wait, I had it in the memo.
there was a time that we didn't have KV Cog because it wasn't voted and we didn't have MMA for a while.
Right. And we essentially had to ask for justification on why we thought that we should have it.
Yeah, if we're paying $7,500 a year, we should be paying another $2,700 on top of that next year.
Because now we're looking at 10 grand a year, and then when does it become 10 grand is what we do normally.
Well,
Or-
I would suggest then that the other option is we would seek some template ordinances. We would try to work through that ourselves, and then we would submit it to our attorneys under, you know, a potential legal services fixed fee contract with Bernstein Sure, and let them see if what we come up with is legal and sound.
I mean, it's not hard to come up with copies of ordinances like that one for Chelsea. That one came through Chelsea and was ratified from the town, so I had to have gone through some of those to be legal.
That's true. But we may be talking about apples and kumquats between the subdivision ordinance, and a solar ordinance.
Right,
Because of the
But I'm saying
complexity.
there's got to be enough ordinances out there to, grab one from another town that's gone through their legal review. And
Yeah.
if it has to be tweaked a little bit, there shouldn't be any major deal, but
Well, I think, I'd rather Peter and Craig speak to how useful they found KV cog in helping with the subdivision ordinance.
All right, will you two weigh in?
Hi, everybody. So I could start a little bit and I would say that working with KV cog was extremely valuable to help tailor the ordinance to the needs of the town of Belgrade, which were rather specific. So I would say that part would have been really hard to do, almost impossible to do without KV cog. That's my.
And did we have any indication from KB cog that there was a time limit that they were going to give us before they decided that was too much time?
Peter can weigh in on this, but I'm not aware of that, but I also don't think that they thought that it was going to take nearly the amount. And our planning board didn't think it was going to take nearly the amount of time that it did in working on that subdivision ordinance. Is that fair to say, Peter and Craig?
From my perspective, that was my interpretation.
Mine as well.
So nobody thought it was going to take 91 hours and then it did. Ricky, what are your thoughts?
I'm not sure.
Would the board feel more comfortable if I got some assurance from KV cog's executive director that they're not going to be charging us every time we tap into their services?
I'd like some clarification on it because that's clearly what it says here and it's in quotations. What do you see?
I was trying to do a little research right now on it. Couldn't find much.
Assistance was provided free of charge, quote unquote. That being the case, we'd ask that future ordinance updated projects have some ways of funding. Well, it's because these are back to back and some of them I feel like we're mixing them up. But I would like some clarification because if we're looking at 10 grand a year, that's different for us to be budgeting. I don't like the idea of we're going to use your services, but we're not going to pay for it until 2022.
Well, and frankly, they're doing that because I suggested it, because of it's not something that we budgeted or planned for in this year's budget, that additional cost. And the general government budget is tight right now because of the amount that we spent on legal services this year.
Right.
problem I have with KV cog is we pay $7,500. We pay $7,500. We pay $7,500 and we get $2,000 worth of value one year, $3,000 worth of value another year, and then all of a sudden they have to do a bunch of work for us and say, wow, that's costing too much money. Well, just because we have 1 year that we need a bunch of stuff doesn't mean.
And all the years that we did.
Right, we paid all that money and
That
never,
was-
and use all of it.
Well, that was one of the things that I asked is, maybe we could look at what services they provide over the last 5 years.
Mhm.
And if this is the first year that we've really had to tap into using that in the last 5 years, is there not a value to retaining the town? Or, yeah, I guess I need some clarification from them. Because if it's gonna be an ongoing cost increase, then folks are gonna dig their heels in and then be right back.
We'll
where
give
we
them
were.
$500 a year to be a member, and then we'll pay for everything after that.
Right. Because there was a time when we didn't have them and folks didn't want them. Yep. And essentially they had to prove the value to the town for us to retain them. So,
Maybe we want somebody who represents KB cog to come there and sit down with us.
Yeah,
So
and is,
Yeah.
and is this policy applied to all towns?
right.
Or is it just to us because the last job took so long?
Yeah, I think, well, I'd be happy to have the executive director come in.
Yeah,
You know, it would just be difficult for their organization if every one of their member towns tapped into 91 hours of planning time. They have two planners on staff.
Yeah.
So,
And I understand that.
Yeah.
But it's not like we do it every single year.
right.
You know, so we're paying all that money every single year. And then we, 1 out of 10 years, we need 96 hours worth of work. You know, I don't think that's unreasonable.
All right, so I guess I would like to make a motion that we table this discussion till the next meeting and that we invite the executive director from KB cog to join us for some clarification. And if we could possibly between now and then put together what we've used KB cog for maybe the last 5 years.
What kind of value we've got out of it.
So that, you know, I think if we can see the clear value, then we might be more inclined to pay a little extra. I do get, you know, Peter, from you and Craig, that there is value there. So I'm not saying that, you know, I'm ready to throw the baby out with the bathwater. I just don't want it to cost us more than we anticipate every year.
Can I throw one more thing in?
Sure.
We had to switch in the middle too, in the middle of this ordinance, we had to switch people that we dealt with in KV cog. So I don't know how many hours that chewed up to get caught up with and stuff. So, you know, out of this 96 hours, I mean, obviously we as a planning board didn't spend 96 hours. It was the people from KV cog. And so I don't know how much that switch in the middle chewed up as well, as far as hours from KV cog.
Right, because if you're bringing somebody up to speed.
Right.
A lot of that, we keep talking about this 96 hours. 96 hours is nothing. A little
I think
over
it's
2 weeks
91
worth of
too.
work.
Yeah, it's 90.
It's 91, anyway.
I mean, whatever. I mean,
Look, we just saved them 5 hours.
yeah, I mean, it's a little over 2 weeks worth of work.
but do keep in mind, Dan, I mean, they have dozens of member cities.
Yeah,
I understand that, but a little over 2 weeks worth of work for however many years, you know, since the last time we had to use them on something big. It's just,
It seems like
since
just.
I've never really had become familiar with what KB cog, what services they provide to us and what we've availed ourselves of. You know, I feel like I need a little bit more time or background.
well, the last time we really used it on something really big was, I think, back years ago when we were working about on the comprehensive plan.
Comprehensive plan. Right.
And that was back when I first started on the select board.
And then time before that, I think, was transfer
And
station.
did we pay them additionally for that?
No,
I don't remember on that.
I think this is the first time that I can recall now, because I've done this, that they've come and asked for more money.
Comprehensive plan, I thought we paid
Yeah, I
more
think
money
we
on.
I thought we had to, but I don't really remember. It was so far
That
along.
was a big project.
Yeah, that was budgeted, that was a budgeted item. Voted on it at town meeting.
So let's talk about
Yeah, all right, so there's a motion on the floor to table this,
it. So,
moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Seeing none, Ricky,
Yes,
Barbara,
Yes.
Dan,
yes,
all right, 4 yeses to table that one. All right, next up, we have the consideration of 4 quit claim deeds for lot 3, map 36. Motion to open that item. All right, something for discussion.
You need me to explain briefly?
Yes, well, there's four. They're on different pages, but it's the same.
Yeah, it's the same property, and I asked our tax collector how it could be that there were 4 liens on the same property, because this was more than 50 years ago. We don't know how things operated back then, what the rules were, but there were 4 liens placed on this property back in the 1960s. Those liens were never discharged, and the title company needs those liens to be released so the property can be sold.
Do we do them separately?
You know, each one of these lists a different book and page number in the registry of deeds, so maybe it would be appropriate to approve them separately.
All right, so I make a motion that we approve the quitclaim deed for lot 3, map 36. Recorded in book 1414, page 779.
We had liens on these. Were we at the town of the page?
I'm sorry,
So if we had liens on these, was the town of the page?
we do not know, it was so long ago. The tax collector suspects that the town was made whole, but the liens were simply never discharged.
Oh, well, no. All right, so I make a motion on the first one.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion on that one? Saying none. Dan? Ricky?
Yes.
Barbara?
Yes.
Yeses. All right, next I make a motion for municipal quitclaim deed without covenants, lot 3, map 36, that is recorded in book 1251 on page 500. Kennebec County Registry of Deeds. So I motion
Okay,
it,
second.
moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Seeing none. Dan?
Yes.
Ricky?
Yes.
Barbara?
Yes.
4 yeses. All right, the third municipal quitclaim deed without covenants, lot 3, map 36. Deed dated, recorded in book 1371, page 292 of the Kennebec County Registry of Deeds.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Seeing none. Dan?
Yes.
Ricky?
Yes.
Barbara?
Yes.
All right, 4 yeses. All right, the fourth quitclaim deed without covenants, lot 3, map 36. Municipality of Belgrade has acquired its interest in said parcel of land through automatic foreclosure and lien dated, reported in book 1293, page 140 of the Kennebec County Registry of Deeds.
Second.
Any further discussion? Seeing, I was like, waiting, Barbara?
Yes.
Ricky?
Yes.
All right, 4 yeses. All right, next up, we have the warrant. Take a motion, open that item.
Second.
And then it's open for discussion.
Nothing jumped out.
Anthony, do you want to just do the opener on that? one
Sure, this
number?
is 113 in the amount of $611,745.52.
Page 2, we've got something for Amazon Prime.
Yes,
What is that?
it's a membership to Amazon Prime, and that's so that we can just get better pricing on purchases from Amazon and get them delivered quicker for facility maintenance.
And do we get free shipping? Because
We do,
So it only costs the town, is that $12.99 for the year?
yes, and so that is a municipal rate versus a private rate.
Oh, it's a-
Yeah. Can I get that on it?
And you just order it, have it shipped here.
Oh, ta-da. I don't have one of those company cards though. That was all I had. Rick, did you have anything?
Find anything that stuck right.
Anything that jumped out at you, Barbara?
No, it's okay.
All right, how about you? Dan?
So, yeah,
All All right, I make a motion that we approve that town warrant.
Second.
Seconded and seconded. For discussion. No, Ricky. Did you say yes, Rick?
Yes.
You're super quiet. Dan?
Yes.
Barbara?
Yes.
All right, 4 yeses. Next, we have the town manager's report.
So everything that's in my written report, the things that we're going to be discussing with the budget committee next Tuesday, I actually want to talk about something that's not in the written report. And that is, as I reported to you earlier today, our recreation director submitted the resignation effective October 1. And so at the next meeting, I'd like to bring the job description for that job to you guys, just to update it. I'd like authorization to go ahead and start advertising that job immediately. I spoke with the Parks and Recreation Board Chair, Linda Bacon, today. And so I hope to approach this just like we did recently with the hiring of the library director with an interview panel. And one of the things that Linda suggested that we do is we actually change the job title from recreation director to community center director. She feels like that's a more appropriate and accurate description of the job. I'd be interested in your thoughts.
And that presumes that the community center oversees the gazebo as well.
Yeah.
That would just be part of the job description.
Yeah.
I mean, that seems okay, because there's a lot that goes on in there that isn't necessarily recreation.
Sure.
I mean, it almost seems like community center
Yeah, I was just
more
gonna say,
limits it to one particular place rather than a function within the town.
and it seems, Dan was just saying, I mean, every other community has a.
Sorry, what?
All the other communities have a recreation director, not a, they might have a community center, but I can't think of any off the top of my head that have a community center director.
It's
Even
just-
if that's the.
It's just a suggestion from one of our board chairs, just pass it on. If you guys don't agree with it, we can just leave it as is.
Well, I think that's why we were just kind of talking about it out loud. It's just, is everybody.
But I assume you guys want me to go ahead and start advertising that as of tomorrow.
I would, and we will re-advertise it, we would do,
We'll do it in MMA. We will do it, of course, on our website and our Facebook page. And then I will see if there is a listserv for recreation people, as there was for state library directors. And if there is, then I'll make it available on that listserv.
what about Indeed? We've used that in the past for certain positions.
Yeah, we did that with the road commissioner. We didn't get any, we got applicants, none of them were qualified.
Probably wouldn't hurt, because a lot of folks, if they are job searching, use that as a tool, and it will kind of, I still get stuff saying, you'd be qualified for this position. I'm like, good God, I've been in there for a couple of years, but once in a while something still pops up. So.
I'm happy to put it on Indeed.
Yeah, the more places we can put it out there, probably the better.
Yeah.
Any other thoughts there, Rick?
Before we, is Anthony all done? Just one thing, I just wanted to let the board know that the Plan 5 is 99% done. We're gonna try to get the water line in place this week. They should have hydroseeded the rest of the cemetery tonight. So we are looking good.
All right.
Great, got a place to go now.
Yes. I'm gonna make my kids plant a tree with my ashes. They're like, of course you are, Mom. All right, thank you for that. All right, so I think at this point, we'll take we take a 1-minute recess to stretch and then we'll go into executive session.
Sure.
Is that okay to everyone?
So do we need
I'll
to
make that motion. We,
exit or adjourn?
well, no, we take a break and then come back for executive session. A 3-minute break.
All right, I'll second that. And Barbara?
Yes.
Ricky?
Yes.
Yes.
All right, 4 yeses. Let's take a little break for a minute.
I should have moved this chair sooner the whole time.
Where's that
Emily. I
move?
like it because you're
Yeah, motorcycle accident.
looking at
Tree.
these chairs.
You did what?
Fell down and a pine tree fell down in front of him on 27 like that. He couldn't, it fell down in front of him. He couldn't- No way he could avoid it.
Was someone hurt or killed or?
Just her.
Oh.
Thank God.
I
He was
saw-
lucky, very,
I
very
saw a
lucky.
Motorcycle on the side of the road. I was
Oh, no.
trying to hand him.
An older gentleman. It was like a scooter, it wasn't a real true motorcycle. I mean, probably if it had been a motorcycle, it probably would have been fatal. He did a pretty good job with it. I mean, by looking at the skids in the road, he rode it pretty good until she tackled. I mean, he braked instantly. He started, the tree come down and it must have been instant. He hit the tree and braked, but you heard how the tone come out. I'm like,
No, that's just there. My phone's like, because I can't drive the trucks. I can't climb up into them. So I had to go with my phone. That's it.
and it came in as, motorcycle versus tree. I'm like, yeah, good one out in the woods, what's that? And I figured, yeah, that's like good. It's like the trees in the middle of 27.
Jump right out in front of them.
And when people say that jumped right out, you're good.
Anthony, if I drop off my budget committee book, will I be able to get paperwork put in? for that?
Yes, Are you about to leave?
Kind of new.
Can you give me like 5 minutes before you,
Yeah.
5 minutes of your time before you do? Let me,
Not 25 anymore.
No.
So the next time I have that fleeting thought that maybe I should be moving this myself, but I probably shouldn't.
Call me up over a tractor or what?
I'm just like, this one was so loud. Find somebody to come home. I think I can do it. Halfway through, I had to shift positions. And it wouldn't come towards me, so I had to go back to the side to get it. All right, this is unmuted. Rick, can you hear us? No, he's not there.
Yes, but it's still recording, you know.
All right. Rick, can you hear us?
Yes.
It says we're recording. We need to stop that. You are using enhanced. Yeah, this is recording.
Computer systems.